I'm Caitlyn McKenney, and in Washington state, lawmakers are considering the passage of rent control legislation that would mandate a 7% cap on annual increases. The House of Representatives voted to pass this legislation, but not without significant pushback from Republican lawmakers, and some Democrats as well. Here's Rep. Andrew Barkis having the last final word before the vote.
But Madam Speaker, how do we get here? Why do we have this problem? I can tell you, as somebody who's been a housing provider for 30 years, we have not always had this problem. This is a new problem for the state of Washington, and now we're trying to fix it with a policy that is going to make it absolutely worse. It is not going to provide stability. The only stability and predictability that we're going to have, Madam Speaker, is that I can guarantee you that tenants' rents are going to go up 7% every year, year over year. And that we will be back again, Madam Speaker, in another session to fix it yet again. We'll come back and look at this and say this is probably not the best thing. I'll tell you what the best thing. May I read, Madam Speaker?
Please proceed if it's relevant.
It's relevant. Thank you. Madam Speaker, I had this article. It says, Austin rents tumble 22% from peak of massive home building spree. Austin, Texas. Rents are going down 22%. You know why? Because they built 50,000 units in 2 years. How did they do that, Madam Speaker? May I read again?
Again, please proceed if it's relevant.
Texas Capital has become the poster child for advocates who say the only way is by building more homes. And while other cities run progressive, including San Francisco and Chicago, and might I say, right here in Washington State, they face criticism because they're not focusing on what they should be doing. That's removing the barriers to creating more supply. Madam Speaker, please, I implore you, please vote with me no on this bill. Let's do better for the people of Washington State to great stability by creating supply, not another problem. Vote no.
So Representative Barkis does an excellent job here of saying there's actually something far more desirable to be pursuing than an unchanging 7% increase every year on rent, with all of the associated harms to housing supply that comes with that. And it's building enough housing that affordability increases on its own without this kind of radical government intervention. Austin, Texas is a great example of that. And while Rep. Barkis calls out some progressive left-leaning regions that have failed to allow or encourage increased development, it's worth noting that this is by no means a partisan issue. UCLA's Lewis Center for Regional Policy Studies did a 2025 review of 6 recent studies, 5 of which found that market rate development increases housing affordability across the income spectrum in the surrounding region. The University of Washington, again, not exactly a conservative institute, Center for Real Estate Research released a State of the State's housing report in 2024. And in those 45 pages, we find that for renters, while the cost of rent has increased steadily over the last 10 years, the affordability of rent has remained very, very stable for both median and low-income renters. I think we should be really clear on this because people tend to confuse those things and assume that any increase in price means a decrease in affordability, but that's simply false. Take a look at this graph. It's not the most intuitive, but here we see that low-income households have almost 100% of the income necessary to spend no more than 30% of their income on rent, assuming average rental cost in Washington. Median income renters have around 140% of the income necessary to spend no more than 30% of their income on rent. The report indicates that very low income and extremely low income households lack the income needed to not be cost burdened by rent. So solutions targeted at this group will do far more good than slapping just a broad cap on rent increases across the board. The Washington State rent control bill flies in the face of both sets of research. One, by operating from a faulty premise that increases in rent mean decreases in affordability. This is not the case at median and low income levels. And 2, by working against the proven reality that increased market rate supply is good for affordability. So kudos to Rep. Barkis and many others who have consistently spoken truth on this bill, and the fight will only continue as it moves through the Senate.